When we talk about what a trailblazer is, it's usually associated with the words pathfinder, pioneer, or vanguard. So how about we add change agent to that? Welcome to Trailblazers Radio, a unique podcast platform that speaks about a myriad of subjects. We are not afraid of opening closed doors, and we always tell it like it is, period. We are accessible on various social media platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We're also accessible on various streaming audio platforms such as Spotify, Google Podcasts, and so much more. It is our mission to ensure that you are educated, entertained, and edified. And we thank you for tuning in to us.
Yo, welcome to this edition of Trailblazer Radio. Thank you so very much for tuning in to us. We thank you. We are very appreciative of you guys tuning in tonight. Tonight is going to be a special episode, and I'm going to call this series Conversations with My Brother. So this is the thing about this is I'm hoping this is going to be an ongoing thing to where we talk to me and several other gentlemen talk about, just talk about the things that we go through as men, but also I also want to try to extend this to have conversations with my sisters as well. So this is the inaugural episode of that. Hoping this is going to be something that's going to be for my sisters, hopefully open up their minds a little bit about who we are as men, but also to my brothers, kind of give us a little bit more insight to who we are, and also just allow us to be a little bit more introspective of who we are and things of that nature. I apologize for not being on camera right now. The area where I do my podcasting is a total mess, so I apologize for that. Did not want to expose anybody to that type of thing, so I apologize for that. So, but as you can see, my brother T Wade the Dragon's in the building. So look, man, we are going to, we're just gonna have a nice little conversation, and we're gonna have a conversation. One of the objectives of this particular podcast, this particular show, is to just for brothers to sit down and have conversations, have real conversations, meaningful conversations that'll most definitely that'll edify and uplift. It's gonna be a little bit of humor in there too, so hopefully entertain as well too, but mostly edify and uplift. So before we jump into this thing, I want to most definitely thank all of our listeners and our viewing audience. We thank you so very much for tuning in with us. That does not go without any recognition. We thank you guys so very much for just hanging in with us and just engaging with us we have some things coming down the pike, to which I will announce a little bit later, but which I'll announce a little bit later. But for right now, let's get into this conversation. So as you guys can see, the name of this is called Truths, Perspectives, and Self-Evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things there are three. Those are the three things that I think a lot of us as brothers, as men, need to kind of realize and understand, so that we can kind of move forward into this thing called healthy manhood. And two of those things are learning truths about ourselves, understanding the perspectives, understanding what our perspectives are, or the perspective of those truths, but also self-evaluating from the latter too. So let's jump into this thing. So I'll start by one of my fundamental truths that I'm beginning to understand as I'm growing and as I'm progressing is that I have to be very much aware. Well, let's back up a little bit.
Hmm.
Let's talk about you know what are truths? What are the things? What are truths? What are those truths? Well, those are the things that we realize in our growth process, in our life process. What are perspectives? Perspectives are the things that we see in our life process. Now, I always want to make sure seeing now when I say perspectives, we see things with we see of course we see things with our eyes, but we also so our eyes are one of the gates to which we are able to understand perspectives. But we also have ear gates to which we hear those perspectives. We also have feelings to which we can feel those perspectives as well. And then the self-evaluation part is just taking all those things, taking the things that I just mentioned, and also analyzing ourselves in more detail, and just doing a real hard self-evaluation, and just kind of giving ourselves a grade, not necessarily a grade, but really just evaluating who we are, so that way we can continually make improvements as we grow, as we mature and grow. Now,
Hmm.
with that being said, one of my fundamental truths, and I'll start with mine, and then you come in with yours, T Way, and then we kind of break those down, because I'm sure there's going to be some commonalities in this, and what we talk about tonight.
Okay.
So one of my fundamental truths that I've really had to understand in my growth process is that I have to be keenly aware of how my past affects how my past traumas affects other people. And more importantly, people that I care about, the people that I love, the people that are in my life, people that occupy my orbit.
Okay.
I have to be very, very cognizant of how my past traumas and past hurts affect those that I care about and that I love, because I have um, inadvertently showered pain and hurt on people that did not deserve it. Oops, and he jumped off there. So what in that particular thing, in that particular truth finding, I've had to learn that what I've the things that I've been through.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, brother.
Sorry. Went out. Sorry.
Ah, you're good, man. You're good. You're good. So I s- I spoke on one of my truths. So
Okay.
what is one of your truths that you learned as you've been matriculating through this thing we call life?
There's so many truths I've learned at my age. I could write a book on all my truths, and it would have to be a series of truths. That's not a bad idea. But anyway, shoot. One of the biggest ones I learned being with my wife
Mm,
after I got married. I'm pretty much that kind of guy that's very to the point. I see things the way I see them. when I got with her, she showed me that there is a gray area because I'm one of those men I see. Well, I won't say men, but people. I'm one of those people who sees things in black and white. Like I used to anyway. And, there was no gray area in anything. And when she said it to me, I'm like, I listen. I don't know what you're talking about. Gray. I don't even know what that is. Like it's either
Wow.
this or it's that. There's no. What are you talking about? Gray. And she had to break. She literally had to break it down to me. Which I mean, some people out there be like, "Really? You didn't think there was a gray area?" I didn't. Like I'm like, okay, it either is or it isn't. What do you mean gray?
Mm,
So she had to teach. I had to learn that. I had to learn that everything is not always black and white. Sometimes there is that gray area, and you have to consider that gray area because, as you've said, it affects other people. It's about. It's not just about me. It's about other people as well.
yeah,
So
man.
yeah,
That great.
that was a huge one for me. I'll even go as far as to say I knew that there were give and takes to things, but yeah, at the end of the day, for me, I just considered myself correct in saying there's black and white. I had to be taught that. I had to learn, and I learned from my wife, and I don't have a problem with learning from her either. So, I mean, it was a good thing to learn. It was a good thing. That was huge for me, especially dealing with her. I don't even want to say dealing, but being with her, I had to learn that there are gray areas. There
Ooh,
are.
boy.
You have to consider those because you can't, especially like in relationships, especially with marriage, you can't go into a relationship, even friendship, thinking everything's black and white. You may end up learning the hard way. Everything is not just
Mhm.
black and white. Some things do have a gray area.
Mm. And in several shades of it.
Several shades. Now see, I'm still learning.
Several
You
shades
bring it up
of it.
several shades. Yeah, there are. There are. The circumstance dictates what it is. So if you don't, every situation is not the same,
No.
but there are gray areas in a lot of situations that you deal with. And you have to be able and willing to consider those gray areas when dealing with other people. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was a big one for me.
That was I think we share we share a commonality in that because for me, as far as the gray areas,
Mhm.
I had to learn that, and I think for me, this is where the duality comes in for me, as far as how how I navigate certain aspects of my life. This is where duality comes in. I understand that there's a light aspect to me. I understand that there's a dark aspect to me.
Mm.
But I also had to understand that there's this little gray area to where, you know, everything isn't so defined. Everything isn't so it you there's no clear lines between that. And I've had to learn that, for me a gray area equates to coloring outside the lines.
Okay. Okay.
And when I look at that, when I look at certain aspects of myself, and also that's why I say we share a commonality with that because now I look at things like, okay, is that really black and white? Is that really just cut and dry? Because sometimes it's not cutting. Because sometimes it ain't cut and dry. It's it's not always boom. This is it right here.
Right.
Gray. I think being in the gray, being having gray areas, they force you to consider things, consider certain things.
But that's what
Okay,
that gray area is. You have a black and white area. But that gray area is that in between area on those two opinions, or it gives you another option, which you weren't looking at before. So now you have a third option that's
yeah.
in there.
Or like some people say, his story, her story. Then in the middle is the truth. The truth is the combination of black. To me, the truth is a combination of both black and white, which does equal gray. But then again, in certain things, in certain instances, everything there is defined lines. So there is black, there is white. But then also in
Right,
other
right.
things, the majority of some things, then you have black, white, and then you got this gray area, like, and what's in that? And everybody
Yeah,
keeps saying, well, the gray area isn't always so clear. Well, you can make it clear if you decide you want to, because black and white ain't clear either.
yeah, yeah. Not always. Not always. And it's funny you brought out the different shades of gray because we don't, it, it, this can actually be 50 shades of gray. Like
It can be.
there's things in there like I mean, she was adamant about that when she first said it to me. Like there's not just your opinion, there's not just my opinion, but there's a gray area. Like just because you think something should be a particular way, you need to consider what's going on. You need to consider there may be a reason for certain things. I'm seeing it as it is, so I'm seeing it in black. Like this is it, you
Yeah.
know. And
Uh,
she's seeing something different, and she's like, "You can't do that." That everything's not black and white, Anthony. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, here we go,
but we but
here
we
we
do
go."
have to be aware of that though, of because sometimes we are sometimes, and again, there's another commonality here. Sometimes I believe that we think our opinions supersede others,
Yeah,
or our thought
yeah,
processes are the thought processes that everybody should adapt because, well, we think it's right. Well, that's not the case, because there's a lot of people in this world. Matter of fact, several billion people in this world. I don't know the exact number, but I know there's a great many people in this world, and everybody, and out of all these great many people, there's a great many opinions.
there are, there are, there are. I'm looking at it and I'm saying to myself, okay, well, we have a lot of opinions. But when I'm talking, I'm and that then you and I had talked on this earlier, but it's a thing where okay, I'm looking at it and I'm looking at it from what I consider to be a logical point,
Hmm.
a logical point of view. So when I'm speaking, I'm like, this is logical to me. This is logical. And like I told you, I went as far as to let my wife know, like I can't get with something that's illogical to me. If it doesn't make sense, if it's not logical, I can't just ride with it. Now, some people can bypass it and be like, okay, well, it's whatever.
Right.
I can't do that all the time. I can't just join the bandwagon. Now, there's some things that like she'll want to do. I might not want to do them per se. So, okay, or I might not be involved because it's like, okay, well, what this is does not make sense to me. Like, you want me to be okay with it, but I'm not okay with it because it doesn't make logical sense to me to be able to to get to dive in. So, but then on the flip side, it's not just the T Wade show. So I'm like, okay, we can do whatever.
Right.
Whatever you want to do, that's what we'll do it. But in my head, maybe even physically, it's showing on my body, and I'm like, I'm just not. It's whatever. I'm doing it because I'm trying to play fair. But don't expect me to be all happy go lucky with it because that's not where my head is at. To me, this is illogical.
See,
It's illogical.
and
And that upsets, and then I've done that, and that has upset her because it's like, well, why can't you just? I can't. It's against my. I'm letting you get
there
into
you
this
go.
endeavor. I'm allowing us to just do, and I'm not saying it in a commanding way when I say allow. But my thing is I'm gonna let it go. Like whatever you want to do with this is what we'll do because you want to do this. I'm on board to do it, but that doesn't mean I have to like what I'm getting involved in because it doesn't make sense to me. So I'm not gonna act and pretend and talk like it's okay and it makes sense to me because it doesn't.
Well,
So we ran into that issue quite a few times in the past. Like it's like I can't get with something that doesn't make sense to me. If I can't jive with it, I can't be all in.
Something that if it went the moment it doesn't make sense, or the moment you're not gonna put yourself in it.
Yeah,
And I think sometimes when we look at something you know that doesn't make sense to us, and we make those faces, I'm like, how the hell could that possibly even make sense, or how does that even work?
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's
What is this about?
exactly. And you're like, what the hell? I mean, how did that make sense? Or better yet, how did that even work in that instance? And then you scratch your head like, geez, I mean, whatever they did to get it to work, I mean, damn, I'm glad, but I wouldn't have done it that way. I wouldn't have done it that way.
Mm-mm. Now, see, the funny thing about it is that what makes me feel bad half the time about it is the fact that when the shoe is on the other foot, I don't
Mm,
get that response from her. You know what I mean? So there are some people out there that know how to just let it be. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to get involved with this, or I don't want to be a part of this, whatever. But I'm gonna do this because you want to do this. And then when they do it, they actually appear to be involved. Like they actually wanted to do, and I'm looking at them, and in my head I'm like, well, you didn't want to do that, you didn't want to be bothered with it, but you're acting like it's all good, so I guess it was all good, wasn't it? But it really wasn't. And then that just makes me feel bad, because I'm like, I did, I don't always do that with her. I really don't. And we haven't had that type of situation in a while. Like well, I can't say that. We've moved into a new house, and we moved into a new house that includes, there's 6 of us plus a baby. So there are some things that I look at and I'm like, eh. And then there's some things that, like, for example, moving into a house with, you know, where there's
yeah,
7 of us, I'm like, I don't want to do this, because again, I'm a thinker.
right,
It's what so when you offer up a proposition, now I'm gonna think on it, or my mind's gonna go, and it's
right.
gonna be, how is this beneficial? Is this beneficial? And in a lot of ways, moving into the situation I moved into, it's beneficial in certain ways. But I'm looking at other situations, I'm like, not so beneficial. So I'm like, I don't know that I want to do this. So I'm doing it because it may be logical on one end, but not the other. See, there's that gray area. There's, it's logical in some instances, but not in others. So, you know what? I'm going to fly with this for now. I'm going to fly with it, do what I got to do. But at the end of the day, it's not that cut and dry. You know what I mean? It's not that cut and dry living with all kinds of other people. It's just not. But you do what you do to make it work. You do what you do to achieve the goal. You do what you have to do now so you can do what you want to do later. And it it's that type of scenario. So yeah, I mean, I have recently had to deal with that in the past few months. I've had to deal with it. It is, there is a gray area, and you do have to pay attention to the gray area, and you have to weigh things out. And we tend not to take time to do that, because we know what we like, we know what we want, and we go with what is. Nothing else
Unfortunately,
yeah, nothing else really matters at that point. It's hard to tell somebody with that mindset to look into a gray area, because they don't know what the gray area is. They've never had to worry about it. It's like, this is how I do what I do. This is me. Take it or leave it. But
but
those with an open mind will look into the gray area. They'll consider the gray area. You know what I mean? Because there is a gray area, especially when dealing with other people. There's a gray area.
yeah, it is.
Hmm.
So so I think how important do you think it is for us as men to realize what our truths are? I mean, how important do you think that is?
It's very important. It's very important. You can't worry about knowing anybody else's truths, and you don't know your own. You can't help anybody else with their truths, and you're not 100% sure on what your truth is. Like, you can't lead, and you don't know what your truths are. You can't teach. You don't know what truths are. You can't direct somebody else to be truthful, and be within their truth, recognize what their truths are if you haven't taken time to do the same. And as a one-on-one, yes, for me, I need to know me. I need to know what my truths are. I need to recognize them, and I need to either adjust or try to fix. And when I do that, I can help others do the same. But it's we're not we didn't come into this world perfect, and we're not going to leave it perfect, but we're supposed to strive for perfection.
Right.
And,
Right.
and I think as a man, we don't always, as men, how do I want to phrase it? We don't always look for those truths, because that would mean that for a lot of us, it means like there's something that's lacking somewhere. And we don't want to look at that either, because we've been taught that, we're not supposed to be weak. We're not supposed to look at things that we could learn from, because we should know what we need to know. We got to learn this. We're the heads. We got to lead, but it's imperative to learn to acknowledge your truths. What is your truths? What are they? What is that you need to do to help you?
See, and I'm in agreement with that, because and like you said, just because you find out a fundamental truth about yourself doesn't make you weak. Hey, Quint, how's it going, sweetie? Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in.
Hey, Quint.
And I know I saw the question there. We're gonna get to that in just a second. I think when we're in agreement with what you said, I'm most definitely in agreement with what you said. Even to amplify the point that you said, that not realizing what your truths are, that if you don't accept those or don't acknowledge those, or if you accept or acknowledge those, that makes you a weak person, that makes you a weak man. No, it does not. It means that
Right.
you realize something within you that needs to be improved, or that needs
Right.
to be understood, or that needs to be examined in detail.
Right. Exactly.
Just because you've learned something about yourself doesn't make you excuse me, a weak person. Doesn't make you a bad person. Doesn't make you less of a man by understanding some fundamental thing about yourself. I think as we in our growth process, we're supposed to learn these things about ourselves, and we're supposed to do our best to try to understand what these truths mean to us, so that way we can keep moving and progressing and moving forward in our life. Just because,
Exactly.
I mean, like the fundamental truth that I found out about myself, that I ended because that I use that my trauma, my past, and the things that I've been through, I've inadvertently hurt people, and
Yeah.
I had to realize that. That was something me and Monica talked about a few days ago, and I had to realize that. all and this is another thing I had to realize, that sometimes when we try to talk about things we do, sometimes we also inadvertently trauma dump on people.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's the
We
thing.
inadvertently trauma dump on people, and then that puts that person in a defensive posture.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I've learned, that I've realized, that you don't want to put the people that you care about in a defensive posture.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Makes things
And
difficult.
yeah, it makes things difficult. Now you're trying, now the openings that you thought you had at first, you don't have those now, because now that person's in a defensive posture, because now it's just like, now you trauma dumped, or you've dumped some emotion or some anger from a past experience onto that person, and now they're completely defensive.
Yeah. And see, that's it in a nutshell. Like, if you don't know yourself, if you don't know your truths, you may not recognize it when you're doing that dumping on everybody that you care about. You may not see it. Like, it took me a minute. Like, when it comes to my kids, same thing. Like, I realized that I was trauma dumping on my kids because I was traumatized from youth when it came to
as
my mother.
as a
Like,
kid.
as a child, like, trauma hit me. Like, I created a luggage like loads of luggage full of trauma, and I carried that into the development of my kids. So what they got from me was what my mother gave me, and I didn't realize it until I literally decided, okay, I need to do some therapy. I need to go to some therapy and see why I am the way that I am. And when I did, I found out, okay, well, let's take a look at your past. Let's see what you have going on in your past. And when I did that, I'm like, oh my goodness, every example that we talked on, it reminded me of my mother. And I'm like, okay, so, you know, I had to learn, like, you were traumatized.
Yeah.
And then you dump that onto your kids. Like, don't, you got to realize what you're doing. So our truths are very important. They're very important. Very, very important.
And here's a question that Quint put to us.
Hmm.
As men, what does striving toward perfection mean to you? You want me to tackle that first, or you want to go? You want to tackle it first?
Ooh, ooh, I've been waiting to tackle it. Can I tackle it first?
By all means, come on
Oh
with
my
it.
goodness. Okay. Now, in true honesty, I do believe that some people feel it has a different. I think that it has a different meaning for different people. But as far as I go, for me, striving, like, it's for me, it's biblical because I'm a churchy. I've gone to church. I'm a Christian. Um, I ain't always right, but okay. Well, we were taught that we were brought into this world imperfect. Um, there's no such thing as a perfect person. The only one that I was taught, the only one that was perfect was Jesus.
Yep.
So with that, also the Bible says strive for perfection, which means you're supposed to move forward towards it. Those things that you know could possibly make you better, those are the things you strive to achieve. The things that help you elevate, to make you a better person, to help you to be a better person, those are the things that you push for. Those are the things you attempt to achieve. So for me, that's what it is. You strive for perfection, means you try your best to do your best, to do what you can, to become a better person, to be better than you are. And we all know, again, it goes back into looking at your truths. Who
Hmm.
are you? What is it about you? Some people do walk around thinking they're perfect.
Yeah,
we
man.
we've heard people tell other people, like, you think you're perfect. Nobody's perfect, but you strive for perfection. You strive for those things that work for you. Those things that, and if I want to put it in a biblical way, then I could say you strive to be like Jesus, who was perfect. Now
Yeah.
you're gonna, and it's recognized that there are times where you're gonna fall. It happens to all of us. That is stated in the word as well. You're gonna fall. You're gonna have your moments, but you pick yourself up. What do you do to make it? A good example is David. David did a lot of falling. David sinned quite a bit, but when David sinned, and then David repented and tried to do better on that thing which he failed at. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna do that again. So which made him the apple of God's eye. He picked up the lesson that he learned from the things that he fell short in to make himself better. And that's what I think striving for perfection means. For me, that's what it means.
If I could answer Quint's question, but also amplify a couple of points that you made, but also kind of add into what Quint put in here too. So I do
Hmm.
want to kind of, this is what she said, but I also want to add into that. She said, "Agree is biblical, but perfection biblically is maturity. So striving toward maturity, and to me that is part. And to me that is part of it. The other part of it, when we're striving toward perfection, is really, to me, I think, is realizing where you are at this very moment,
Hmm.
realizing where you are mentally, physically, emotionally, psychologically at this moment, and consistently working on each area that is lacking. if you're lacking in the if you're lacking in the physical sense, work on that part. And if you're lacking in the emotional sense, work on that part. Go to therapy, find help. If you're lacking in the in the mental sense, same thing, find help. They do things that help build each area of that up. Now, when for me, striving toward perfection means just it entails all those things, but it also entails what Quint mentioned as maturity, because as we grow, and as we evolve, we mature. As we mature, we're supposed to know a little bit more about we're supposed to know just a little bit more about ourselves as we mature. Some people, and I'm gonna say this, and this is gonna sound harsh, but some people need to hear this. Some of us as men do not evolve. Some of us actually devolve.
That's truth.
We
That's
don't we
true.
don't we don't we don't evolve. Some of us as men devolve because we're we're stuck in our we're mired in those ways of those thought processes. And again, we're also realizing striving toward perfection also means, always looking forward, but never looking back. But also understanding that what you went through is a lot is makes up a large part of who you are. But it also should give you the strength and the fortitude to move forward. A lot of us as men, and I can put myself in that at one point in time, don't a lot of us don't want to move forward in the things that we're supposed to do. And we don't want to move forward in our maturity. We don't want to move forward in our thinking. We don't want to move forward in recognizing and analyzing and realizing our truths.
And why do you think that is?
Because we talked about this earlier too, because it's like we weren't taught that as boys.
Mm.
Our fathers weren't taught that as boys. Our fathers wasn't taught that as boys. We weren't taught what it means to embrace who we are, embrace the emotional part of who we are. We weren't taught to, you know, it's okay if you're hurt. It's okay. It's okay to let a few tears out, and it's okay to let some tears go.
Yeah.
It's we weren't taught these things. We weren't given the tool. We weren't given the tools. Excuse me. We weren't given the tools to move in that, to move in those things. And then later on in life, when certain situations come up that require us to respond with emotion and empathy, we can't do it because we lack it, because
Right.
we were never taught it. We were never given that tool and the tool to use. And excuse me, we all have, like I said, I learned all this stuff at 19 years old when my firstborn kid when my kid was born. I experienced all of those things. I experienced a lot of a lot of emotions all at one time. Happiness and sadness were emotions that I was happiness was an emotion that I always kind of relegated to know what it was. But you know, I think other emotions such as dejection and defeat and all those other. I mean, those are things that we experience as kids too. But we were taught that, you know, hold your head up high, and don't cry because you lost. Well, well, shit. We lost because it hurt. It hurt. And the best example that I can give, I was 13 years old. We were playing baseball. We were playing as all stars, and we were playing with the right to go to the Junior League World Series. I think it was in Bangor, Maine at the time. And We played all the way up to the state tournament, and we steamrolled everybody. But then when we got to the state tournament, we lost the first game in the tournament, in the not state tournament, but the regional tournament, and we lost the first game. We played. We won the rest of those games, and then got to the championship game of that regional tournament, and we lost. We played a hard fought game. We played our hearts out, and we lost. Every last one of us on that team shed tears, bro. Every last one of us shed tears on that team. We all
No
cried,
doubt.
lost.
Yeah, no doubt.
And we thought, and a lot of us we thought that was the end of the damn world. It wasn't, but it was the end of our journey at that point in time. And one of those things, I mean, I don't know. I mean, for me, we weren't taught that. We weren't taught that as kids. And then as adults, we have to play catch up and learn all these things and try to quote unquote figure it out, so to say, so per se. You know, the another best example for me, I thought was like, for me, as far as like understanding certain emotions and things of that nature, was when my father's mother died, my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. You know, the moment that I saw that it was a finality thing for my father, when I saw him bury his face in his hands, and I was upset with myself because I couldn't get to him, because I couldn't reach him. Because in my heart, in my mind, in my heart, I thought that at that time that was his weakest moment, and he needed his son to console him. When and I felt really bad, and I told him, man, I was really bad because I couldn't reach you. I couldn't console you at that point where you needed to be consoled. And everybody, and this is the other thing. It's this new generation of men and women who look at stuff like this, who look at stuff as guys like you and I, older gentlemen, who are now becoming to be coming to our emotions and understand what our emotions are and what they mean to us, and how they can help us, and also as well as how they can also hinder and hurt us.
Yeah.
You know, and they hear the newer generation of men and these guys and gals say, well, if you show emotion, that's gay, or better, if you sassy, if some other all this other stupid arc. Oh my god, I hate that. I really
Yeah.
do hate that, because
Yeah.
what's wrong with a dude? What's wrong with a dude? Okay, what's wrong with a dude recognizing his truths and then realizing that those truths are painful and shedding a few tears? What's wrong with that?
Listen, you know how hard it was for me, because I was in that group of people that was taught, as a man, you're supposed to do what you're supposed to hold things down. You're not
Mm,
supposed to show that soft side. It took me a minute to break down to my wife. Like, some things got overwhelming and everything. Now, the one person you should be able to break down to is your companion. And I could break down to her, but I never did, because I felt like she needed me to be strong.
man,
But she never
no.
said that. She didn't say that. I mean, she would like a strong man, but yeah, she never said, you got to be strong. You got to do this, that, and other. I don't better not ever see you crying. She never said that. And one day I couldn't, I came off wrong on her. And then I went to her in the middle of the day, and she was sitting there peacefully. And I started talking to her. Next thing you know, I'm breaking down. Like, I'm explaining myself, and I'm breaking down why I feel the way I felt. And it was hard to do for me, but there was such a relief doing it, I'm in the back of my head, I'm like, why haven't I done this before?
I mean,
Because like there's a release that's given to you when you can actually, as you said, when you can recognize your truths and you can recognize your faults or you can
yeah,
recognize your shortcomings. And it took me a minute, but I got there and I'm like, oh my goodness. And it threw her because after being with her for so long, I had never broke down. I had never opened myself and made myself vulnerable. And it messed with, like, she was like, I didn't know how to respond at first because you've never done that. She's like, but I really want to thank you for doing that, with me. And it felt good. She acknowledged it. And she's like, I know that must have been hard. She's like, and I thank you. And she consoled at the same time, and it felt good. And I'm like, this is what we should be taught to do. And when you're with the right person, they're gonna respect that. When you're with the right person, they're going to help you with that. When you're with the wrong person, those are the people that are gonna be like, listen, what the heck are you crying for? Why are you
yeah,
breaking down? Why are you talking to me about your shortcomings? Why are you talking to me about your feelings and this, that, and the other? Man, you better man up, be somebody, and stop acting like a little punk. Like,
man,
them are the wrong people right there.
no,
That's the wrong attitude. That's the wrong direction.
always the wrong direction. And gosh, I mean, and I, I'm saying this without being too judgmental, but there are some women out there. There are great many women who who love the fact that their mate can be emotional and be transparent and be and share themselves with them.
Yeah.
And then to the opposite of that, there are women that don't like that, that think that that's not manly or macho. And a lot of us as men look at not crying or not being emotional or not being vulnerable with a
Yeah.
as the macho response, and that's the wrong type of response to have.
Well, it's like Quinn just said, she prefers a man that apologizes and can cry, not all the time. And I I, I get that. I get that because I'm not shoot, I'm more of a private crier anyway. If I'm gonna cry, normally that's me. I'm gonna like I'll suffer it out. I'll talk to people about my issues, but I won't emotionally open up all the time. And it's not because I don't feel I can. It's more of a protective thing for me. I guess it's more of a I don't feel a need to have to let everybody know my business all the time, or
Right.
it may be something I've gone over, I've already expressed. Like, for example, my wife may already know what I'm dealing with. So why am I going to turn around next week and cry about the same thing all over again in front of her? Why am I going to do that? Like, why am I going to even, I'm supposed to pick myself up and say, okay, how do I fix this? After I've had my moment of breakdown, after I've had my moment of going through, okay, so now the next step is how do I fix that? How
But
do I do what I need to do? And so no, it's not a cry all the time thing. It's not that. It's not a I gotta always show my emotions all the time because it's
right,
not conducive to do.
right. But I think one this is could be something that we could probably agree on, but I could say I think one of the fundamental truths of us as men, as all of us as men, this is, and I'm saying this kind of generally, and this can be debated upon at length, but this humble person's opinion would be, I think a lot of us as men, our fundamental truth is that we suffer in silence, that we engage in silent suffrage. And I mean, I know I have. I mean, for
I
the
have to, and it sounds sad when you
it does,
said it. when you said it, the first word that came to mind was sad. Like, but not pathetic sad, but sad that it's emotionally sad that somebody would have to suffer in silence. You know what I mean? Like that shouldn't be a thing. Like, because a
No,
lot of times we need people. A lot of times you're gonna need people that are there to help you through. So it's to me that becomes a sad thing. You know what I
true.
mean? Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I mean, and prior to you and Kai coming on, we talked about. I had a show about that silent suffrage, and I can say a lot of us as men and women, um, but I'll say this more directed to us as men. I think a lot of us do suffer in silence. And the simple
Yeah, we
fact of it
do.
is that we feel that nobody's going to be able to understand what our situation is or understand where we're coming from, or may not care about the fact that we're vulnerable. And that's going to lead us to like one of the other thing that I want to talk about is, you know, perspectives. How do we see things? How do we look at things? How do we view things in our lives? For me, perspectives is not it's a word. Perspective is a word that has one meaning, has one meaning in the dictionary. But if I can expound on that meaning, for me, it's more than just what's seen or what's heard. It's also what's felt. Because, like I mentioned before, um, there are several gates that can be accessed to from by us and by other people. We have our eyes, which are gates. We have our ears, which are gates to which we hear, and we also have our heart and our soul, which is another gate that people can access through words, through our ear gates, and through our eye gates. But also, we're also moved by our things that we go through traumatically in our
Right.
past can alter our perspective. Um, I'll ask this question and I'll answer it first. What? How important is it for us to look at perspectives as men? How important is that? I'll say it's vitally important because, again, perspectives are the things that we are not just the things that we see. It's also the things that we hear. It's also the things that we take in, and also the things that we feel. So our perspectives are shaped by a great many factors. One of those factors is emotional trauma, emotional trauma. And I won't even say emotional trauma, but also with experiences, the experiences that we've been through, traumatic experience, traumatic or not. Those experiences shape how we view how shape our perspective on how we view the world at large. It also shapes how we view the people around us, the people that share our orbit. If we've been through something, that's gonna alter our perspective, and it's gonna put us in a it's gonna let us see it's gonna make us see things in a negative light, in a negative way, and gonna have a negative outlook and perspective on what it is that we see. Now perspectives can change
Okay.
through the course of time, and also through the advent of maturity. But
That's true.
when but when someone has been through so much, and they've endured so much, and they've taken in so much, and either they've either piled it away, or they pitched a tent and built a house in it. That
Mm.
perspective tends to be rock solid, and sometimes there's no moving in that perspective. There are some gentlemen that have a very, very hard perspective or outlook on life. There are some gentlemen who are in the mid whose perspective is in the middle. There's other men who have have a great perspective on life because of what they've done as far as doing the work is concerned, doing the behind the scenes shadow work is
Right, right,
concerned,
right.
you know. And I'll defer that question to you. As men, as men, why perspective? Why is perspective important?
See, you said it all. For me,
I mean,
like,
there's more to it though. There's a
well,
lot more
well, I
to it. I
mean, there's
mean,
always gonna be more perspective for me. Like, it's important because it does help us to grow. We can move forward. Um, it well, let me rephrase that. It determines how we move forward,
mm,
how we move in life. Your perspective on things. If everything that we go through, if a person, everything that a person goes through, they relate to it as being crap, like life is crap, then that's how they perceive it. Everybody's perception on life is going to be a little different. Uh, it, you can get somebody who's out there like robbing banks, who never had anything, life was always hard, and their perspective may be a little different
right,
from somebody else's who's had a hard life. Maybe they didn't feel like their perspective on life probably tells them that nothing good ever comes of you trying to do things the right way. Maybe the other person who's had it hard, their perspective is it's hard, but you know what? Maybe I can overcome what my detriment has been, and I can make life better. So
right.
you have different perspectives and different scenarios for different cases. It's hard for me. My perspective on life is life can be hard. I ain't gonna
Right.
lie, life can be hard, but I'm determined to make life better. And
Right.
what else? What helps me with my perspective is, even though life can be hard, and there are things that I may go through with my wife, she is a factor
Right.
in that perspective. Like, life is rough, life is hard, but I have her and she is awesome. And then I want to make life better for her as well. So it's like, okay, my perspective, my drive is different. Based off of the perspective that I have. It's crazy because you can also have dual perspectives at the same time. Life is crazy, but guess what? Life can be good. You know what I mean? Life can be what you make it. And in all honesty, I hate when people say that. I hate when life is what you make it, because people be like, "How's life treating you?" Life ain't treating me at all. I'm treating life. I'm the one paying the bills. I'm the
Mm,
one. Life ain't doing nothing for me right now. Life ain't doing nothing but making things hard for me. But that's my perspective on it. But hey, I know that I'm looking for angles to change that. And that's, I
right.
think, where the key lies. Your perspective may be one thing, but it can change. And your perspective can be one thing, but it can also flip later on. It's
Oh,
gonna be based on your mindset is everything. And it's very, very important. Your perspective is important. A lot of people are stuck emotionally in their
yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
And it makes it hard for some to move forward, because I've been trying for all these years and nothing's changed, and every time I take one step forward I get knocked back three. Like, their perspective is bleak. But what do you do with that when you are in that position? What do you do with that? What do you do to change the perspective?
Try
What do
something
you
different.
you try something different?
You have to. I mean, if your perspective is like that, and you stay just like you said. I mean, and this we're using this as an example.
Right.
If you tried everything you could to try to change your outcome and nothing happens, you're gonna have a pretty pretty bleak perspective on certain things. But have you tried a different tactic? Have you tried a different approach?
Right.
Have you tried just kind of looking at the problem from a different angle? I think the other thing with perspective is, I think perspective also is also a product of choice. We as human beings, we our life the way we live our lives and how our lives are right now is a direct product of our choices.
Yeah. Choice is important.
We are a product. Where we are at the moment are we're is a product of our choices, whether those choices are good or bad. And we have to put those choices into that perspective, because it all starts, to me, perspective all starts with the question as, why am I here? How did
Mm.
I get here? What did it
Meaning,
take?
how did you get in the situation you're in, or
Mhm. Not, I mean,
this
I
stage
mean,
of life, or what do you
yeah,
mean by that?
why why am I here? Why am I here? Not not the big question that we all ask, that we ask
Mhm.
God at some point in our life, why am I here? Because I think at some point we've all asked God that in our life, why am I here? But it starts with the question, why am I here in this situation in this very moment? How did I get to this particular result? What
Mhm.
choice did I make to get here? Was it a bad choice? Was it a good choice? Was it an indifferent choice? Was it was it a choice that was clear, that was thought out? Or was it something that was a choice that was hasty? Or was it something that I just, did at a blink of an eye without giving it any type of cognizant thought?
Mm.
So it does start with that question, why am I here? How did I get here? And what can I do? What can I do to change whatever outcome I have currently? Because I think perspective also can be equated to outcome.
Well,
What
it
you
is
know,
your outcome, your perspective. Well, it all depends on what you do with the perspective.
true.
So you have the perspective, then you have, well, what do I do with the perspective I have, and then you have the outcome of that.
Yeah.
So you
And
need to think on what it is, that what is your perspective? What is your perspective? Like, okay, look, that's where you start. What is my perspective on life right now? It's crap. Okay, well, what am I
yep,
going to do about that? Okay, well, this is what I probably should. Well, actually, you need to ask yourself, why is it crap? Once you know what your perspective is, then ask why that perspective lies where it is. And once you know that, then
mhm,
you're like, okay, so how can I fix this perspective? Or how can I change this? And when you make up your mind how you're going to change it, then you get the conclusion of the matter. But again, a lot of things can transpire, a lot of things can happen within the realm of possibilities when you try to adjust that perspective. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
it does. It does. I
It
mean,
makes sense to me. That's
but
why I was saying it. But like,
but the
you
adjustment
really
of
have to understand what you have to like you said, you have to ask why. Why is your perspective the way it is? Why are things the way they are? And then you ask that secondary question, how can I fix this? Like you said, how can I fix this? How can I change this?
but
And
the,
then you
the
make the moves.
but see, one of the things that we as men have to learn to do, and it's a hard thing for us to do, because a lot of us, again, it starts back from the beginning of never being taught how to deal with things, and how to roll with punches, sometimes.
Yeah. And
We have to learn how to take that perspective and see it for what it is, and then make adjuststudjustments to it. I mean,
and, and it's
even if
hard
we
to
have to
do.
deconstruct it.
Right. And it's hard to do when you're older. Like
Oh, yes, it is
you know,
very much
you
hard
know
to
how
do
they
when you're
say,
older.
yeah, it's like they try to say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I mean you can teach an old dog new tricks. However, a lot of the old dogs don't want to learn new tricks because they're comfortable. At this point, at
Yeah.
that point, they're comfortable where they're at, and it's hard to learn new things. Like a lot of us, even regardless of age, a lot of us don't like change, and we don't like to look at things from a different perspective. Because we've
Because
been in this perspective for so long, it becomes comfortable. It
change
becomes what
requires too
we
much
know.
work.
Huh?
Change requires too much work.
It does. There you go. There you go. It does. And nobody wants to put the work in. Nobody wants to put the work in. You know, I say that all the time when it comes to marriage. When I have relationship conversations, I'm like, marriage takes work. Relationships as a whole take work. They take work. And if you choose to put in the work, okay. If you don't, then expect to stay in the rut that you're in, because it takes work. And a lot of people don't want to put work into the things that they want to achieve. It makes no sense to me. You know already you're going to have to do certain things. Well, I don't want to have to do it. You just want it to automatically happen for you. It doesn't work that way.
Exactly. And the best
It
way I can
doesn't.
put it, it's harder to look outside in than inside out. And the reason I say that is it's harder to look out. If you're on the outside looking
Mm,
in, you don't got a lot of you don't have a great view of that because you only can see what's directly in front of you. Now, if you're looking on the outside,
yeah.
if you're on the inside looking out, it's a,
See, I
you
like
got
that. I like that. I like that.
you have a greater view of things.
Yeah.
But people tend to, and I'll say this for I won't say again, what I'm saying is generalities, not nothing that's gonna be that's based in any that's based in any fact, but it's generalities. And but also when we speak in generalities, there's a strong possibility that those generalities can be true.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Some of us tether our viewpoints and our perspectives to outside looking in thinking
Mm, man.
because we think because we're on the outside and we're trying to look in and we only get this limited view of what we're supposed to see. And I'm gonna tell brothers, gentlemen, I'm gonna tell y'all this, and I want you to really understand what I'm about to say. Perspective requires us to have a complete, un unhindered 360-degree view. We gotta have that 360-degree view because we have to view everything around us.
Yeah.
It's not just what's in front of you. You also have to be mindful of what's to the left of you, to the right of you, what's behind you, and then all those directions that encompass that whole 360-degree view. You have to be able to see everything in 360 degrees. Because if you
Like that.
don't, you're gonna miss something, and you're gonna miss something that you should have seen coming, but now you're blindsided by it, and now you got to make adjustments to it. I mean, but it also forces us as it should I won't say force us. It should condition us as men to also to be able to keep our head on a swivel. And I'm not saying that in any type of defensive or offensive terms. It's just that we should be acutely aware of what's going on, what goes on around us. Even more acutely aware of what goes on around us in our own lives, because we're supposed to be able to have we're and I'm saying this we're quote unquote supposed to be able to have a 360 degree view of our lives. We're supposed to be able to see that all the time, but
Right. Right.
the wrong perspective can limit your view to 180 degrees,
So you can.
or even more so could only limit your view to only 90 degrees, to where you can only see that right angle, and you're supposed to see more than that. That those that right angle is supposed to be flat, and then that flattened that thing that's flattened out is supposed to just flare out into a circle, and you're
Right.
supposed to be able to see everything in front of you. And you're supposed to be able to turn around and see everything in its entirety. And in its entirety, and also in full and living and full color. You know, again, but it also it's you bring up some great points about that, and we have to see that in 360 degrees, because if not, what are you missing? What are you missing? You're missing something. And the way life moves now, the way life moves now, I think Ferris Bueller said it best in the movie. Life moves pretty fast. If you miss it, if you don't look at it, if you don't catch up, you're gonna miss something. You're gonna miss something awesome. And I'm paraphrasing what he said. I don't know the exact quote, but I know part of it is life moves pretty fast.
Yeah.
If
I
you miss
mean,
if you don't pay attention, you'll miss something. You'll miss something. You'll miss something awesome, or you'll miss
yeah,
something that's gonna be fruitful for your life.
yeah. For
Crazy.
me, I'm constantly, like I said, I'm a thinker, and sometimes I think grandiose. Sometimes I'm just detailed. Not always when I'm supposed to be. I'm not always grandiose when I'm supposed to be, and I'm not always detailed when I'm supposed to be. But I do have those elements of thought in me, and I think often and all the time. And for me, I'm always looking at what life is for me and what I need it to be. And I'm trying to figure, okay, well, what can I do to make it what I need it to be? Regardless of what it is now. I like to deal with things in the moment. I like to, so right now, my perspective on life is if I say it's rough, okay, so I want to deal with what's making it rough right now. It becomes a momentary thing. I want to know what's making it. It's not a lifelong thing, because I don't necessarily want to sit there looking in the past. I mean, we'll do that in therapy. We look at things in the past. That's fine. But my focus has to be on what's in front of me. It does. My
Right.
focus has to be on what lies ahead. And if I'm in this rut at step one, by the time I reach step 100, I want some type of a different outcome. I need a different outlook. My
Right.
perspective, my perspective needs to be different. So how can I change my perspective? I have to change whatever's making my perspective what it is at that moment. I have to change that. And just
Hmm.
sitting around thinking about it doesn't always work. I mean, it never
Yeah.
works. Because like we've said, you got to put the work in to
Yeah.
change
You
the
got to.
perspective.
I mean, what's the use in saying that you want to change something, and then you don't put the fire to the forge.
Exactly. Exactly. But again, that's where a lot of us men fall short. We don't want to put the work in. A lot of men don't want to put the work in. Even after they've looked at their truths, even after they've dissected their perspective, they don't want to put the work in to do what needs to be done.
Mm,
It's the same thing as a guy going out to the garage. For the past 10 years, he's been loading that garage with nothing but garbage, junk, spare
mm.
parts, things he don't necessarily want to throw away. So he opens the garage door and he sees what's in that garage. And he's like, his perspective is, this is junk. This is a mess. This is uncontrollable. Now you've got some that'll be like, you know what, Jimmy, put your shoes on, come help me with this garage. Then they've got the perspective, okay, I want to make something beautiful out of this garage. I want to fix it, clean it up, get rid of the garbage that's in this garage. But you get some who look at it and they're like, man, this is a mess. And then they raise their hand and they pull the chain and they lower the garage door. They'll be like, I'll hit that some other day, because they just don't want to do, they know it's going to take work that they don't want to put into it. It's just going to have
Lord
to
have
stay the
mercy.
way it is for now. And that's the way that it is. I mean, we tend to be lazy. We don't want to do the work. And
Mm.
anything worthwhile takes work. Anything worthwhile takes effort. And you got people that just don't want to put the effort in. So,
Yeah, I feel you on that one, bro. I do.
yeah, they
And
want to put the
that
effort in.
to me, and kind of to conclude this part of it, to me, perspective is an important part of our self development as men. It can
Yeah.
either be a driving force or a hindrance, and it can be, and it can and will be if we look at it in either way. If it's a driving force, it's going to be a driving force for good for our betterment. But if we look at it as a hindrance, then we're gonna find ourselves stymied and handicapped because we lack something,
And see,
and
for me, perspective is it's a thought process. It's a
oh
overview
yeah,
of what you think. So the narrative. Change the narrative. If you break down the perspective. Okay, now this is what it is. How do I change that? That's where the work comes in.
yeah.
After you've seen what it is that needs work. Now, what do you do to fix it? What do you do to fix it? The only answer I have is to put in the work to fix it.
Hmm.
You got to put the work in. If you're not going to put the work in, it's a void. It's a void thought, void conversation.
Yeah, it is.
It
But then,
is.
but then we talk about the last thing we're gonna talk about self evaluation.
Okay.
What is that? Well, it simply put is the evaluation of self.
That's simply put.
Just simply put, it's the evaluation of self. But what does self evaluation entail?
Mm,
It entails analytics. It entails thought processes. It entails a lot of things. Self evaluation is a multi layered thing. It's a very multi layered thing. And when we look at self evaluation, we look, I a lot of people look at that. Well, I used to look at it in a very very negative light because now it's just like because I thought self evaluation because I thought well, I thought evaluation was just somebody pointing out all the negative stuff and all the negative things that I had that I got, and never the negative things that I got going on, or the negative aspects of me in a job or whatever, and no one never pointing out the positive things. But then I was wrong. Evaluation is evaluation is a combines both, but it also provides positive, also provides effective feedback from both both the evaluator and the evaluee. Now, self evaluation is again, simply put, the evaluation of self, and it entails the same things as someone evaluating you. You look at the positive aspects of yourself. You look at the negative aspects of yourself, and you compare and you contrast, and you talk to you speak to the positive aspects of yourself. Those are the good things. Those are the good things about you, about us that make us these great, wonderful, uh, and great make us these great people. But then you talk about the bad parts of yourself. These are things that make you that don't make you that make you a not so great person, and
mm,
makes you more of a contentious person, or someone who may not be always approachable, or may not be always communicative, always someone that doesn't always want to communicate. And then you take the good and you take the bad, and you don't mix them all together. But you work on both parts of it. You continue to work on the good, continue to to push and keep working towards the good, but then you also work on the bad stuff. Turn the negative aspects of self to positive aspects of self. A lot of times, a lot of times we don't we how can I put this? And I can only say this for me, honestly speaking.
okay.
There are times where I don't properly self-evaluate.
Yeah, I think we all have those moments.
There are times where I misdiagnose myself.
Yep. Yep. I mean, it's the same for me. Like and the funny thing is, I agree. I believe that we're all our own worst critic, good or bad. Um, and for me personally, I always self-evaluate, and I've been told I tend to be hard on myself. But
As you should.
self-evaluation, it's breaking down, like you said, the positive and the negative. It's breaking it down. It's self-evaluation is looking at both sides of the spectrum. Um, a lot. So we do tend to look at the negative, and I believe it's what you said, which is basically we've been conditioned. I believe I'm a manager. I've been a manager of 3 different restaurants, and it's like when we had to do evaluations, like that word strikes fear in people. Like it's not a, oh boy, I get an evaluation. It's never that. It's like
It
you're
makes people
walking
cringe.
you're walking that funeral march towards the office, and so I feel like in a way we've been conditioned with that word. But evaluating yourself is just taking a look at yourself when you're doing it for yourself. It look at yourself. What do you think of yourself? What are your shoot? You can throw goals in there. What are your goals? What is it that you feel you can improve on? What is it that you feel you're great at? Like you said, look at every aspect of the spectrum and figure out who you are. Self-evaluating it should help you to understand and see who you are for you.
Yeah.
It should. And if it doesn't, then you're not doing it right. Something's
Nope.
wrong. Because you should
Nope.
dissect. You should look at everything. Look at you. Who are you? Who are you?
What
What
are
is
you?
Yeah, exactly. Like what are you doing? What do you want to do? Why are you not doing it? Or are you doing too much of what you think you're doing? Like self-evaluate. By the time you're done, you should be able to answer certain questions concerning yourself, who you are. But
Right.
I do believe we are our own worst critics, and I also believe that word evaluation does add a negative stigmatism to it. It has a negative stigmatism added to it. It's so a lot of people don't want to do it. You know what I mean? Or they don't put the effort in. They don't see things the way they should. They don't analyze things the way they ought to because they don't want to put. Half of us don't want to see, especially as men. We don't want to see where we've fallen short.
But how about
One
how can
because
but
one
how can
because
one improve?
a lot of men think that there's nothing wrong with them. Two, because they don't want to see the negative, and three, there are those who see the negative and don't want to put the effort in to change it. It's like
How can one
love me the
improve?
way I am, or don't love me at all. I don't care.
Man, stop.
You know what I mean? That's what that's the outlook on thing. And I mean, at some point, you gotta self analyze yourself. You do. At some point, you have to look at yourself. If things are not going right, the first thing I'm going to do is, well, where did I fall short? If I'm going to have that perspective that I'm going to look at, okay, so life is crap. What's going on in life that I'm looking at it as crap? What's going on? Is it me? Is there something that I'm not doing? Is there's something, that's not quite right? I need to know. What have I done? Let me look back. Let me look back and see what steps I took that weren't necessarily conducive for my goals. From
Yeah.
my perspective, for a positive perspective, how do I get a positive perspective?
Yeah.
Especially after carrying a negative perspective for so long.
She
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Good
And
point though.
life can knock you on your behind. Life can send you in a world spin. It can really jack you up, and your perspective can really be bad, and that's understandable. Um, because we face it every day. We do. We face it. Some days are good, some days are not. We got a lot going on right now, especially
Mhm.
politically. We got a lot going on. Don't know where this country's gonna end up. What's gonna happen? Um, and on top of that, we got life going on outside of that, and it's like, okay, what do we do? What's gonna happen? What am I? What can I do? And you have to look at self. You have to take care of self. Be ready for self. Handle what's in front of you
Mm.
instead of just letting it be what it is and saying, well, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do. Figure that out because it's important. It's important.
See, and it has to be. And gentlemen, I want to say this, and I'm gonna put make this as plain as possible. Self evaluation is not a hard, not a it's not a death sentence. Okay,
It's not. It's not.
it is an opportunity for you to look at yourself as you are in your current state and make an honest evaluation about yourself. Be honest with yourself. What is it? What is it that you can do good? What is it that you do great? That you do awesome? And then what is it that you're not so awesome at? And then what are the things that you can improve on? I mean, and I use myself in a transparent manner. My self-evaluation process has revealed a lot of things about me that I did not like, which which triggered an emotional response, a very emotional response. The emotional response of crying. And because those are things that because I did I myself it revealed a lot of things that I didn't like about myself that were not so great. That wasn't there weren't that didn't make me look like this awesome person that everybody else looks at me as. But then also in the same instance, it also revealed a lot of things that I knew about myself, but didn't know to that extent. Didn't know to that extent. I realized that
It's funny because therapy helped me do that. It
mm,
You get into therapy, it'll help you self evaluate. They will help you self evaluate in a way to where it's like, okay, because like with my therapist, she not only helped me self, she's not only helping me because even to this day, every time I go in, I'm like, okay, we're gonna she wants to self evaluate what, but she'll even go with the positive. It's like, okay, so what have you done for yourself? What have you done for yourself today? Or what have you done for yourself lately? Or, where do you think you're at in life? Or, and through that process, she's helping me evaluate myself as well. Like, okay, so why do you think it went the way it went? Why do you think things happened the way they did? Why did you say such and such a thing? Why did you say it the way you said it? You know, and or if I tell her life is crap, why is it crap? Talk to me. Tell me why you think life is crap. And then after I answer, it's like, okay, so how can you fix that? How do we change that? How do we go and change how you feel? How do we change what the narrative is now to something different? So if you can't do it yourself, then find somebody who can help you with self evaluation. Because for me, I mean, I've always self evaluated, not like you said, Fred, not always accurately, but I've self-evaluated, and having somebody to talk to help me self-evaluate is great. It's awesome. I'm finding out things about myself that I didn't know, or things like you said that I knew that I didn't focus on, or you know, it helps.
Right.
So
I
I
get
personally like it. I will self-evaluate my life, everything inside of my life. What am I doing wrong? There have been times I've gone to I've walked to the Wizzo and been like, look, baby, I have to apologize. Or, like I'm looking at, for example, she does a lot in the house. How come you don't help her, Tone? I know you work a lot, but when you do get home or on your days off, there are things you could do. And at one point, I had to apologize. Like, I'm sorry, I've been falling short. I had to evaluate myself, and I did that at work. So when I
mm,
got home, here's the apology, because like you deserve one, because you bust your behind here, and I couldn't ask for better. I couldn't ask for anything more from you, and I ain't been helping. So I can't even lay claim to we did this and we did that, because we didn't do nothing. You did. You know what I mean? So I had to evaluate myself at work to get to that point. And that's just one example of, self evaluation, but
yeah. I
it
mean,
helped.
we got to. I mean, it's again for me, it revealed so many things about who I was as a who I am as a person. Not who I was, but who I am as a person.
Yeah.
It showed me the things going through that process was a it was an enlightening process, but it was also a painful process. Um,
Mm.
but I look at it more. But even through the painful parts of the process, it was still enlightening for me because I was able to see. Because I'm able to see those parts of me that need to be kind of walled off and have a put and have a under construction sign put right there because those parts need to be worked upon. And then the parts that are good, they just need to be cleaned up and spit shined. So that way they shine even more. They require maintenance. They require that regular maintenance.
I think we all have that. And, I think we all, to some degree, we're all there. We're all there with you. You know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of spit shining that needs to be done on my stuff. There's plenty of fixing, rerouting, redoing, rebuilding. There's a lot. Um, you can, to sum it up for me, you can have a perspective, but that perspective can be changed.
Mm.
You just have to want to put the work in. It's I think maybe that's what they meant when they said, yeah, when they said life is what you make it. You don't have to stay stuck in that perspective. Um, I'm a firm believer, and I am not gonna lie. I'm a firm believer that life does deal you cards. Um,
Yeah.
but it does become a case of how you deal with those cards. How are you gonna play that hand?
Ooh.
You
And
know
whether or not it's a crap whether or not it's a crap hand.
exactly. Yeah.
Can you pull a can you actually pull 10 books out of a bad hand? Yeah, you can, but long as your partner, as long as your partner knows what he or she's doing.
Right.
But I mean, but you gotta learn how to play. And let's just kind of put this out there. I think
Yep.
there are some instances that all of us have been dealt a bad hand at some point in our lives.
Oh yeah.
Some of us have been dealt bad hands for the majority of our life, and we play those out, and we play those hands out, never understanding the consequences or the ramifications of playing those hands out.
Yeah.
And in most cases, playing some of those bad hands out have were able to they we were be able to be blessed with incredible opportunities. So
Well,
let's not say that having a crap hand means you're gonna mean having a crap hand means you're gonna lose the game, because that's not true.
Right. Right.
You know, because
Right.
you, cause like I said, having a bad hand can lead to a great opportunity, but then also having a bad hand can lead to a lot of other things, wanton destruction, and everything else that goes with that. You know, emotional and mental collapse, and other things that go with that. So listen. I mean, there are people say, "Well, I've been dealt a bad hand all my life." Well, how did you play? How did you play that hand? Was that the only hand that you were dealt, or were you given other hand? Were you given better hands than the one you currently have?
Right. Right.
Because I mean, yeah, some of us have been dealt bad hands, but at the same time, the game still goes on. So in the course of that game, you're
Yeah,
going to
it
be
does.
given good hands and bad hands.
Yeah, you really have to figure out. You really have to figure out what you want to do with your life. You do. And again, it's not like life's always going to be on your side. Not like life's always going to play fair with you, cuz that's not the case. But you have to know how to maneuver. You have to learn how to maneuver. So that you're, again, going back to perspective, so that you know your perspective does not stay the same way. Too many people get stuck in their perspective. They get stuck in the woe is me,
Yeah,
but then again, you do have those that are stuck and they don't know how to get there. They don't know how to get out. You know what I mean? Like it's I don't want to paint it, because I don't want to paint it as, okay, well, you can change your perspective and make it everything you ever wanted it to be. Sometimes it does get hard, and sometimes people don't know how to change that perspective. They don't know how to do what needs to be done in order to make things different and make it better. And you can self-evaluate and you can find the negatives, but you still may not know. There are those that still may not know how to fix what's broken. I mean, I can have a toaster that don't work. That don't mean I can fix it because it's my toaster. Man, just because I've had it for a few years doesn't mean I know how to fix that toaster. Some people they may need to find help in changing their perspective. Like I said, because again, life doesn't always play fair,
no.
but you don't have to stay stuck. Is the only thing I can say. You don't have to stay stuck. You can figure something out. Change the narrative. Do something different. As you said, Fred, you do something different. You don't like the perspective. Do something different. If what you're doing isn't working, then change the narrative, change the perspective, change your story.
Change your approach. Change how you
There
do
you
things.
go. Yeah, because you got to try something different to get a different result. Because, as they say, that's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again. Like, you can't,
And
if
getting
it
the
doesn't
same
work.
result.
Yeah, if it doesn't work, why do you keep doing it?
If it don't
Why
fit,
keep doing
don't
it?
work.
When you can change the narrative, you can change the perspective on it, then that's what you should try to do. Because if you don't, then you're stuck in the perspective that you've already become familiar with. So
Mhm.
you have to try to change the narrative. Otherwise, you're stuck. Now, I
Man.
can't guarantee you that everything you try is gonna be successful, but try and try again. It's better than staying stuck in that narrative.
All right. And I think, and that's a great thing to end this on, man. So first and foremost, Tony, I want to thank you for being here with me tonight to try to bring this topic to light, and also, you know, adding your transparent and unique view to this. Um, every time you and I get up here, it's always a great conversation. Um, and I'm appreciative of you, man. I really do appreciate you being here, taking the time out your Wednesday evening to come up here and us sit over have just a very honest and transparent conversation. So I appreciate you, brother.
Hey, no problem. It was my pleasure. It was my pleasure anytime and every time. Like I have no problem with it.
Yes,
Anytime and
sir.
every time because like you said, the conversation is always great and you and I could basically go on all night long.
I know you right. I know,
You
right?
know, we could have long conversations all night long. But
I know, right?
I do appreciate you having me on for this because it was awesome. It really was.
Always, always. And ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen of the listening and viewing audience, I want to thank you guys for tuning in and rocking out with us tonight, man. I hope for any brother, for any gentleman that's out there listening, that's listening or watching tonight, I hope that this particular conversation, at least whatever part of it that you listened to or that you watched, um, helped you in some form or some way, shape, or form. Whether it's understanding, the importance of acknowledging your truths, whether it's the importance of understanding understanding how your perspective um, affects how you affect your life and your viewpoints, or just understanding why self evaluation is important for us
Right.
as men. I hope that you were able to at least catch one of these points, man, because I think that it's important for us as men to understand what our truths are, what our perspectives are, and to self evaluate. Because
Yes.
as as crazy as these times are, I
And
think
you're crazy.
it's gonna be important now more than ever for us as men to do this. And let me just put this out. No, it is no, it is not. No, it is not. Um, how do people put this? No, it's not sassy to self evaluate. No, it's not. Um, you're not less of a man if you analyze your perspectives, and no, you're not less of a man if you uncover and realize and analyze your truths. None of these things make you less of a man. It actually makes you more. It makes you a very much. It makes you more aware as a man. But it also
Exactly.
allows you to tap into other things. So please don't believe the hype about well, that's not that's not manly and that's not macho. Well, tell them that's not that. Well, that's not what you thinking ain't cool either. If you're really gonna we gonna compare apples to oranges, honestly speaking, you
Yeah.
know, realizing who we are as men. And I am gonna start a series called What is Healthy Manhood. One of the things that I think healthy manhood revolves around is the realization of our truths, the understanding of our perspectives, and also reaching that point of self-evaluation to where we can self-assess and and accentuate the things that's strong, and then the things that we're not so good at, put those things up under construction so they can become strength, so they can become assets and not liabilities. You know, there are other things that healthy manhood also entails, but that's a topic for another show. But I do want to start the series of healthy manhood because a lot of us as dudes don't know what that entails. And
It
I
is.
don't say I have all the answers, but I have some theories. I have some suggestions and some theories that I hope can help. Um,
Theories work. Theories always work.
yes, sir. So, Tony, when the next time you and Kai gonna be jumping on here and
So,
blessing us with y'all's great
we
convos?
do have one somewhere. Um. Okay. Well, I was gonna go on tonight, but we'll be hitting our show up again on next Wednesday.
Bet. Okay,
Next
cool.
Wednesday. Um. Yeah, I had a powerful show that I was gonna do tonight, but I wanted to get with you on this one because I thought this was a great opportunity. You know what I mean? And I love this type of conversation all day. I can have this conversation all day.
Oh yeah,
So
we
yeah,
can.
by all means, we will definitely be on letting y'all know what is what next Wednesday.
That's what's up. That's what's up, man.
Yeah,
And
man.
as,
Next
and as for
Wednesday.
me, you'll probably get because you may catch me. You might catch me tomorrow. You might not catch me tomorrow. But I mean, it just depends on how I feel or whatnot. And then, um, as you guys know, LAG's been making some change because of our schedule. She's making some changes to when she comes on and comes on in the air. If you guys missed Monday's show, Power Hour, last Monday evening, you missed a very powerful show. And just to let you guys know, there's going to be, if you're in the Michigan area, there's going to be a powerful event going on in the Michigan area. Make sure you guys tap in with LHG and Andrew Griffin to get the details of that event, because that's going to be a very great event. It's going to be also be a life-changing event. Bring your children from ages 12. I think it's for kids from ages 12 to 21. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find that post and see and see if I can get some more pertinent information on that, so that way you guys know what's coming. Let me find that post real quick, because I do want to give more details of it.
Mhm.
So here, where'd it go? 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 It's here somewhere. I'm scrolling. I'm sorry. I am scrolling. I am definitely scrolling.
Gotta find.
There we go. Here we go. So if you guys are in the Detroit area, this is August 17th at 3:30 p.m. This is for kids ages 12 to 21.
Mm.
Andrew Griffin's going to be there. Latanya Harris Gooden's going to be there. Leslie Stevenson's there. Levante Johnson. Oh, and so many more. So many more. August 17th, 3:30 p.m. This is a youth mentorship program, Rewrite the Vision, presented by Andrew Griffin, for ages 12 to 21. This event is going to be at 1736 North Lank Park Court in Southfield, Michigan. Zip code is 48075. So if you are in the Detroit area, or some you're in Detroit or surrounding areas in Michigan, make sure you get your kids into this event. Now, the good thing about this is that Trailblazer Radio is sponsoring 2 kids to go to this event. So we're sponsoring 2 children to come to this event. This is going to be a game-changing, life-changing event. So make sure that your kids are in the places, and make sure you and your kids' faces are in the place, and get some great information, and also be healed, be rejuvenated, be revived. And man, it's going to be a good one. So if you miss Monday's show with LSG, they talked a lot about what to expect at this event, but also when and where it is. I just gave the information to it. Make sure you guys are there. If you're in the Detroit, Michigan and surrounding areas, make sure you guys are there. October 17th, 3:30 p.m. Ages 12 to 21. Andrew Griffin presents Rewrite the Vision. Make sure you guys are there.
Jack, I kind of wish I could go. I've never been.
I know, right? I know it sounds exciting, and I know with Andrew and his team, and also with LHG and the other folks that are arrayed with them, it's gonna be powerful. It's gonna be very, very powerful. So the other thing I did have some announcements, but we got so deep into this conversation. I think that was it. I forgot what those were, but that was it. But then I did announce the Rewrite the Vision thing, and want to make sure that I supported Andrew Griffin and also and LHG in that. This is something that I think that LHG has been very, very, very emphatic about, and very excited about. So make sure you guys. So if you're in that area, make sure you come and support. Lastly but not leastly, make sure you support us as a platform. We're everywhere on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We're also on Clapper, also on Rumble. We are also on TikTok as well. We're also on X, also known as Twitter. Patreon page is still in the works. Just trying to finalize some things and get some things put together, so that way that can be up and running. We're also on Twitch. And I am working on getting us a Discord server. So make sure you guys keep your eyes and ears out for that. But we're everywhere on social media, man. We're looking to expand where we are seen and where we are heard. We're also, if you guys also want to listen to our podcast, we're on Spotify, and also other audio streaming platforms such as Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and so many more. With that being said, I want to leave you guys with one particular thought, and it's going to be a very short thought.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to think about the best way to say this. As men, we need to realize what our potential is in this world, in this world that we live in. We have the potential to be great, to be great. We have the potential to be awesome. We have the potential to be larger than life. We have the potential to be larger than life sometimes. However, it is the things that we were not taught as men that prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
It is the things that we have been exposed to, whether it's a traumatic experience or whether it's something any other type of experience that prevents that from happening. Were we taught the things that we know now by our fathers? 90% of the time, no. But do we act? But now that we know what these things are, now that we know what these things are that we weren't taught, it's time for us to embrace those things. It's time for us to embrace our emotions and understand what those mean for us. Understand what they are to us. Understand that they can help us better understand who we are. It's time for us to acknowledge that being transparent and being vulnerable isn't a crime. It's time for us as men to understand that self-evaluation isn't a death sentence. That understanding your truths and understanding what your perspective isn't something that makes you less than.
Mm-hmm.
All these things make us better men. Not only does it make us better men, it also makes us better fathers, makes us better sons, makes us better role models to those who look up to us as such. But hey, it's just a thought. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. You guys do with it as you will. On that
Many
note,
of the great things that we've witnessed in our lives have started with just a thought.
yes, sir.
There
Yes,
you go.
sir. All it takes is one thought.
One thought.
And on that note, me and my brother Tony T. Wade are gonna bid you guys a good night and a good evening. And we want you guys, as I always say when I conclude these podcasts, number one, take care of each other. Number two, love on each other. Number three, it's a crazy, crazy world out here, and it's getting crazier by the moment. So
Mhm.
please, above all things, y'all, please be safe out there. Please be safe out there. We love y'all to life. We love y'all to live, and we love y'all, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. So on that note, we are gonna bid you guys adieu, and I'm gonna take you home with this song by Mookstar Dash called "Therapy," a song that I love so much that you guys are gonna hear it again. So we love y'all. We'll talk to y'all again. Peace.
Peace.